Hey, Mark, how's it going, man?
Good, good.
We're here today with Mark D. Williams. He is a filmmaker and is an award-winning filmmaker, actually. He's been around tons of festivals, awarded for editing, directing, acting, and we actually had the privilege of meeting Mark in Oklahoma at the First Americans Museum opening, and it was really amazing to see him work, and we wanted to have him down on the podcast, and here we are. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you are doing a lot of cultural work with the Native American community currently,
Yes, sir.
but how did you start off? What made you get into filmmaking? We'll just get right to it. Tell me a little bit about your background and who you are and what do you do.
Okay, so I am Oklahoma Choctaw, Mississippi Choctaw, and I live here in Shawnee, Oklahoma right now. But I grew up a little bit in Mississippi as well, on the reservation down in Mississippi. Started filmmaking about 15 years ago, and probably to go even further back. I've always been interested in just doing creative things. So as when I was younger, I would write, draw things, but never really got into any kind of video work until I got older. Um, about 15 years ago, I wrote a short film that starred, when you first starting off, friends, family, just begging people to be in your movie. Um, this was at that time was kind of something more just for fun. Want to just kind of try it out, and then we made this little short film. Very very bad, I guess. Very cheap, cost like $200 to make it. But we didn't expect too much. But my nephew and niece is starting it, and so um, I gave that DVD to some friends and family to watch, and a couple of months went by, and I get this phone call from a film festival in Tulsa, and they somehow got hold of it, wanted to show it in their festival. And at that time, I'd never been to a film festival, didn't even really know what it was. Um, I showed up, and again, you got to remember this is my very first one making, and so I was really nervous, and thought they were just going to laugh, at how bad it was. But it was a horror film that we put together, and this little $200 movie that we made was scaring the audience. They were jumping and closing their eyes and everything, and it was one of those moments where at that point that that you're hooked. This is what you want to do for a living. So at that point, I just started studying more and more and making more films. Just self-teaching. I've never been to film school, so everything making the next movie was my film school.
That's
And
awesome.
then it just kind of started getting to where the budgets got bigger, the projects got bigger, to the point where I was casting. And then, fast forward years later, I got people calling me to make their films. And so that's kind of how it started, and, a whole lot of stuff in between too.
That's really awesome. How old were you when that first happened?
Man, so let's see. I was probably in the early 30s.
The early 30s. Wow.
Early 30s, yeah, yeah.
That
Got
it,
a, I feel like I got a late start to it.
yeah.
Yeah, and 'cause
I mean, late start or not. I mean, I think that's you never know when what makes you take a turn in your life and you find
yeah.
your passion and or you find that thing that you're meant to do. So that's really cool. Are you familiar with the filmmaker Darren Aronofsky?
I'm not. I don't think so.
He made The Wrestler,
Okay.
the Requiem for a Dream,
Yeah.
Pie. I'm sure you've heard of those films.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when he first started off, and it was based in New York, he was shooting in Subway, the movie Pie. He basically asked everyone that, hey, let me borrow $100. I want to make this film, and once I make it, it will do well. I'll just
Hmm.
give you 200 back. And that's
Nice.
how he started, made his first film, and put his name on the map. Like, when people saw Pie, it's like, oh, holy crap, this guy, it's a
Yeah.
black and white film. He had no permits, and in New York City, you definitely need permits to shoot in the subway and everywhere
Hmm.
else. He
Hmm.
basically ran around with his friend with a camera and just shot, and it was guerrilla style because every time the cops came by to check a permit, they just ran away.
Yeah, yeah.
So you never,
It's
you have to
awesome.
start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And you with your $200, that's really cool. That that's what put you on the map. So you mentioned that you began with horror stuff. What was the first film? Tell me about that.
The very first one I did with the nephew and niece
Yeah.
was something called The Dare, and it was kind of loosely based on something that me and my friends used to do as kids. And talk about it now, it sounds kind of dumb, but we used to dare each other to go into a cemetery and to prove that we made it so far. We had these sticks, and we had to place it at certain places in the cemetery. And the next day we go back and say, and like, see, I made it this far, or I made it further than you did. And I always just I don't know why I had this in the back of my head, was what if one of my friends went out there and didn't come back? It just kind of started from there. I wrote about uh, that idea, and from there, just I wrote this. It was about a 15-minute little short film. Um, it was kind of based on if it was me, if it happened to me, if my two friends didn't come back, the guilt that I had to live with. And so it was kind of just loosely based on that. So that was the very first one I did, and the next few ones were kind of something similar, horror films, thrillers. For some reason, I just kind of gravitated toward that kind of storytelling. It just kind of came natural for me, and it was fun too, just to see the audience's reaction. That's what I really got kicked out of early on.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the first time you were at the festival, people did
Hmm.
feel like, oh, there's a shock value to it.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest reward you can receive as a filmmaker or an actor or an artist.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. I sat there in the back, and I don't, because the movie right before mine was a huge $2 million budget film. Right before they showed mine, and then mine was $200. And so I was second guessing. I should not be here. I didn't want to be here. So I sat in the back of the theater. Didn't want them to say who I was, and but it helped because, and I still do that today. To this day, I'll still try to sit to the back of at these festival screenings, because I start watching audience members and seeing if it's working, to see if it's clicking, to see if the ideas that I had, if it's if it's hitting them. And so I sat there in the back, and they were, like I said, just jumping, closing their eyes, and at all the right parts.
that's awesome. Now, it's so interesting that you mentioned that it was something you guys used to play this game
Yeah.
uh, on how far you can go to the graveyard, and it's something that you knew, and you're always interested, like a horror kind of interested you from the beginning. Is that because of your upbringing or how you grew up or what you did with your friends? Why horror?
I think it's a little bit. Yeah, you kind of touched on that. I don't know what it is with natives. Whenever we get together, at some point, someone's gonna start telling ghost stories, and I don't know why that is. That it just happens. And I just remember as a young kid, my uncles, or the older guys, older people would be start telling these stories, and other kids go out and play. But I always wanted to hear what they had to say, and it just always intrigued me. And you can just sense when someone's getting scared. And I say, if we're outside and they're telling these ghost stories, and if there's a sound in the woods, everybody kind of jumps and they kind of like look at each other and they kind of laugh, and you're like, "Oh, you were scared? No, you were scared." It was just something about that dynamic where they just enjoyed kind of scaring each other. And I think I just kind of gravitated toward that, and I just remembered some of those stories too, and it kind of creeped into my storytelling as well. So um, whenever I was trying thinking about ideas or scenes or anything like that, I just sometimes would recall things, and it just kind of came into my writing.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned that you're Choctaw from Oklahoma and Choctaw, Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that a little bit? What's the difference and how, like, explain that a little bit? I guess I don't want to, assume anything, but
Well, Choctaws, we're a southeastern tribe, and so
I'm sorry, you cut off a little bit.
our
What was that?
homeland is Mississippi. Excuse me,
You're what tribe?
Choctaw.
No, no, I know. You said Choctaw is something tribe.
Oh, southeastern
Southeastern
United
tribe. Okay,
States.
gotcha.
And so you have a cluster of these different tribes that originate from the southeastern part of the United States.
Hmm.
And so what we would say would be our homeland or our motherland would be Mississippi.
Gotcha.
And so I'm sure maybe some of your listeners are familiar with the Trail of Tears.
Yeah, of course.
So that's what led, or when they brought or took the Choctaws from our homeland, forced them to Indian Territory, which is Oklahoma now. And so the majority of the Choctaws went to Oklahoma. Some of the ones that stayed Mississippi became the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. The ones that were forced to Indian Territory became the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. And so my mom was Oklahoma Choctaw. My dad was Mississippi Choctaw. And so they met in college, and then a few years later I came out, and so now I can say I'm full blood Choctaw, but half Oklahoma, half Mississippi.
Yeah, that's wow. Thanks for explaining that to us. Yeah, just for Michael wasn't there for for the grand opening of FAM, but
Mhm.
he was there with me the first time we met Dave Franks, who's
Okay.
actually the tribal leader from the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and he introduced us, you and I,
Yeah.
and when I was with Jake Tiger and Rodney Factor, I interviewed them, and they told me the story about their people that the Seminoles that came from Florida
Right.
and that they're now in Oklahoma. So very similar, same Trail of Tears story, which
Mhm.
is horrifying. I do want to touch on a lot of the things that are important right now to talk about, and I know that you've transitioned a bit into the working with the more culture and heritage stuff of your of your background, and your filmmaking has kind of veered towards that as of recently. But it's good to hear that the inspiration comes from a place of struggle and place of pain, especially for your people in Oklahoma. How does that affect your filmmaking?
Well, for me, it's about giving that past a voice, and so that's where I think my passion kind of comes into. Is there stories out there that a lot of people either don't know about or maybe don't want to hear?
Mhm.
And so, it's important that we highlight and tell these stories and educate people on why some of these issues are important to us. And so, a lot of the times too, it's me learning as well, learning about my people, learning about the traditions and the culture, things that I didn't really grow up on. I'm now hearing it from the elders. So um, when I get to interview and sit down with them, I will literally forget that I'm working. I will forget that we're actually filming, that there's cameras with us, because the stories that they're telling me, it's just like we're sitting there having a conversation, and then to hear them afterwards, thank you for sharing these stories. To thank you for giving them the opportunity to talk about it. That for me, that's kind of what does it. That's what kind of keeps me going.
How do you feel about like now that you have this kind of like asset and this trait that you're actually digitally copying these stuff instead of like finding a lost tomb somewhere and trying to decipher this lost ancient language to tell this story, and you just like assuming you go into a cave. Let's say you go into a cave
Mhm.
and you see these kind of pictures and you're trying to piece up what these pictures are telling out of a story rather than have you know captured the live words of these elders and these wise folks to express their story to tell it. Because sometimes when I get these stories out of my grandma and like how they came out to the sea, my jaws just dropped.
Mhm.
Like all these struggles that these millennials would never ever dare try in their lifetime. How does that make you feel? It's like you feel like you're capturing every single essence as much as possible for your heritage and everything like that?
I mean, it's just humbling. It's humbling that they, it's as an artist, I guess you always kind of critique yourself, or you'll wonder if you're good enough to do things. And the fact that they keep, coming back to me to um, bring me on these projects to tell these stories. Um, it's an honor, but it's also humbling too that they trust me with these family stories, because some of the stuff that they're sharing is really tough. And then they've told me before that if it was a non-Choctaw, if it was a non-native filmmaker asking these questions, they probably wouldn't
Right.
open up as much. And there is just that issue. And even the fact I am Choctaw, sometimes they're kind of reserved about it, because they want to know, uh, what are you going to do with my story? What are you going to exploit it? Are you going to try to over dramatize it? Or, what's the end process of it? But once they see it on the big screen, and again, when they come to you and shake your hands afterwards, and sometimes they got tears in their eyes, thanking you. And so it's just a humbling feeling that I really can't explain other than that. And just grateful that they keep coming to me and asking me to do these projects. We got some more coming up too, so just always grateful.
That's really cool, and I've experienced this firsthand because I'm not a native. I don't have any native blood, and when I was mingling with your people and with the Native American community in Oklahoma, uh, most were very gracious with open arms because they knew that I was coming from a good place,
Yeah.
genuine, desire to just tell and share their stories. But there were also certain folks who were understandably fearful of what will I do with their stories.
You're right. Right.
And again, when I say understandably, of course, because what has for centuries, what has outsiders done with Native American stuff?
Hmm.
They've exploited it in every single way.
Exploited, lied to. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, over and over.
Yeah. So of course I understand that fear. But once, again, I'm so grateful for people like Dave Franks, Jake Tiger, who's after getting to know me, getting to know us, did introduce us to people like you and others who are more open to speaking with us. And it was really, as you said, the word is humbling and grateful.
Yeah.
Because these stories I would have never known if you just don't sit down and have a conversation with people. And so many of these stories are passed down orally, right?
Hmm.
And we have this great ability nowadays to document these stories
Hmm.
and pass
Hmm.
them so it can reach so many more. And it's really cool that you're doing that, man. You mentioned something earlier that, regarding these films, that people either don't know about them or
Hmm.
they don't want to know about them.
Hmm.
Explain that. Why do you think that is? Why do they not want to know about them?
They don't want to admit that their family, that their town, that their people did some of these tragic things.
Gotcha.
Or there's always that mentality of for non-natives, I guess, is, oh, that happened a long time ago. Get over it. Um, that's what this latest film that we have in the film festival circuit right now, Ikiana Lachi, is about the last Trail of Tears removal.
Hmm.
And that's kind of the one I was kind of thinking about when I said that, is because when you think Trail of Tears, people think, oh, that was a long time ago. It was in the 1830s, 1840s. That was so long ago. You need to kind of get over that. But that film talks about the last removal that happened in 1903.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't know that the Choctaws came here in 1903. I didn't know about it until Choctaw Nation approached me about this project. And within that removal, there was a plot to sell these Choctaws off as slaves as well.
Hmm.
One of those unknown things. And so the town that we talk about in the film may not, it's a dark past for them. And so they're not really going to want to hear about it, or we're not going to really promote this film. But these stuff needs to be told. And so it's a dark past on them. But yeah, it's important that these family stories get out and that this stuff really did happen to the Choctaw people. But through it all, we're still here, and we still have our traditions, our language, and our culture, and we're still a strong people.
Well, that's great, man. And the fact that you're doing it is also pretty amazing because just because part of history is painful or not great to hear about because it brings up old wounds doesn't mean that it should be
Hmm.
forgotten. Um, but even with all this work that you're doing currently, this is not your earlier work, and I think one of the reasons that I was interested in your cultural work to begin with, but then Dave Franks told me that, he first started off with paranormal videos.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? And I was really intrigued. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you now towards Halloween, because I thought it'd be a great transition for us to have you as one of our first guests for the tribute that we're paying for the Native American, Heritage Month next month. That we'll start with the paranormal stuff with you and transition into your cultural work. So one of the films that you sent us was called Violet. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about this film.
So Violet was a film that I wrote in 2014, I believe, and it's a thriller mystery. Some festivals categorize it as a horror film, but it's about this mental patient that escapes their facility and mysteriously dies, and her death is unsolved until 30 years later when things start happening all over again. And it stars an all Native American cast. One of the things I'm really proud about the film is there's no reference to anything about them being Native. There's no Native theme to it. It's just an all Native cast playing these characters that it's a universal story. And so I wanted to make a film like that to where they're not playing a stereotype. They're not playing to what you normally see on TV. They're just playing these roles,
That's
and
awesome.
you could put almost any race into it. It's the same story. And
That's
so
great.
these actors, they were grateful for that opportunity because they always get cast in. This is the token Indian in this film. And so
Right.
it was an opportunity for them to show their range and what they could do in a thriller. And so we made it, released it in 2016, I believe. Did really well, won a bunch of awards, and just really really proud of it.
You sent us a trailer for it, and I'm going to share that with the audience.
Okay.
We'll take a quick look at that, and then you can tell us about it
Okay.
a little bit.
So, Carrie, Michael, what do you think?
You really think this is the one?
I do. I really do.
So how's the move going? Y'all get everything in?
Almost there, Pops.
I think we grabbed one of your dad's boxes. What was the name of that place he worked at again?
Collins Psychiatric Hospital.
Was it a scary place?
Never been there. I was pretty young when he retired, and he really never talked about it much.
Michael! Is that woman standing right there?
No, you didn't. You just had another nightmare.
No, it wasn't, Michael. She was wearing those leg restraints.
I'm looking for Dr. Tidwell. Is this his office? My father's Dr. Sam Harold. He used to work with Dr. Tidwell at Collins.
Does the term Subject 23 mean anything to you?
We're standing in front of the home of Dr. Sam Harold, chief psychologist at Collins Psychiatric Hospital, the same hospital where just recently a patient has escaped.
You weren't supposed to see that. You were never supposed to find out.
Michael, I know you don't believe me, but I saw that woman. She's in our house. She's in our house.
Nice. That's pretty creepy. It's funny, especially with I saw the beginning of the movie when he's first sent it to me, and they're just this like loving home, and she's talking about buying that she can't believe that she's with her husband, buying a new house together, or something like that. So her range is actually pretty awesome because she is a completely sane and very happy woman in the beginning. And I don't think you show much of that at all in the trailer. It's all her kind of spiral down, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I have to say the music was spot on.
yeah, yeah. Well done on the soundtrack too.
That got my heart racing a bit. That's the best part of like a horror story is when your heart is racing and you're not even like exercising or doing anything. It's just coming out of feeling.
Yeah, no, that was on point. So what what was the budget for that film? That's not $200 movie at all.
No, it wasn't $200. I think it was about 16,000. So it's still very, very, very cheap. But I mean, by that time, I had done a few films, and I had people that was kind of wanting to work with me, and so they was able to do it at a low cost and make sacrifices so we could make this film. So about 16,000, I think.
Right on. And the production value looks amazing. Now, how long is that movie? I think it's about 45 minutes, correct?
Yeah, just under 45. So when I made it, I was trying to get it to a certain film festival, and I forgot which one it was, but I remember the cut off between what they consider a short film and a feature was 45, and so we got it right under 45, sent it in, and we won this award for best short film.
Nice.
But other festivals, anything over 30, they consider a feature film.
Right.
And so it's funny that we have awards for best short film and best feature film for Violet, and so.
Nice.
But we'll take it. Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah.
It is kind of weird time length, but that's kind of why.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It is kind of weird, time length, 44 minutes,
Right.
but that's kind of why. And when the very first draft of the film, I think is only like 12 minutes, and then there was just so much to unpack, and so I just started writing more and more to the point where it ended up being what you see.
That's great. Do you write these yourself?
Yes.
That's awesome. Without any help, like, do you have any partners for writing, or it just all coming from you?
It all comes from me. So whenever I get the first draft done, I'll get input, or by the time we start, shooting the film and I have it cast, I'll talk to the actors and kind of just see what they think, or do they feel like their character would do this, say that. And there's a lot of rewrites too during filming. Sometimes right during a take, we'll change some stuff up. But the first draft and everything is stuff that I come up with.
Now, where is the inspiration from? This, like, where, like, for Violet, how did you come up with the idea?
For Violet, and this kind of goes with a lot of the stuff that I've written before, is an image will pop up in my head and something that just kind of sticks with me. And maybe that night or the next day, something is like, there's something there. And I'll just say, whatever the image is, whatever the person is seeing, like, who is this person? How did they get there? Why, when, all that stuff. Then I'll start kind of going from there. For Violet, in the trailer, we saw that boy going down the cellar. That is where the inspiration came from. A buddy of mine, we was hanging out at his house, and I forgot, for whatever reason, we was in his backyard, and I noticed he had a cellar back there. And me as a storyteller, I'm always thinking of different ideas. And I asked him about that cellar. I said, "What's in there? Is that like a storm shelter?" He said, "No, we hang out down there." I said, "Okay." And so we went down that cellar, which is the actual one in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And when I just went to go check it out, and this is also the time when I was doing paranormal stuff too. I was doing paranormal documentaries, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So my mind was already kind of in that place. I went down that cellar, and he had a chair. It was totally empty. He had a chair in the middle of the room and a light bulb just hanging there, and it looked like almost like a torture kind of a vibe to it. And right at that moment, that's the feeling that I got, was someone is basically forced to stay there. Maybe this person lived there. Why? And then the story just kind of came from there. I don't want to give too much away before people hadn't seen the film yet, but it started from that cellar. And so it became Violet stayed in that cellar.
Gotcha.
I mean, not much people actually get into a paranormal scenario. I myself have a paranormal story, which I had told Niaz, and it always starts with like this kind of airy feeling. It's like you know, even if you go down to a cellar or something like that, you get this like chill down your spine, like you know, whether it's just like climate or something like that, it feels moist, cold, damp. That's how it started with mine.
That's how it started. Yeah.
No, Mikey actually ended up with some scratches on his back when he was working on the construction site.
Yeah.
And then what was it? Your coworker said that.
So it was like, you know, one of those long days you had when you know, work. We started out in the basement. It was like a 3 floor house unit. And we started out in the basement. You know, things were, you know, we're doing everything normally. 3 days in, we started noticing, because we always flip the breakers off, try to conserve electricity and whatnot. Walk in there, and the bathroom light in the basement was always on when we got in. And then later it stopped. And that day where we noticed that nothing happened, seemed like a normal day. Went back home and I took a nice hot shower. And you know how when you get like a sunburn and that hot water hits your skin?
Oh yeah.
Like a scorching feeling. So I had that in my back and I didn't think much of it. I didn't really take a glance, but my friend who was managing the project talked to me about it. Like he was like, "Hey, anything weird happened to you last night?" I was like, well, that happened. Like I felt something burning in my back. He was like, "Get out. Let me take a look at your back." And then later he saw it and he just, whatever he had in his hand, he just dropped it. And he described this like, it's the same thing I have in my chest, which is like almost like a Wolverine claw coming straight down.
Yeah.
And that didn't disappear until after the job was done. Like it just
until you guys left the site.
Yeah.
So that is crazy.
There's some new movie ideas for you there.
Yeah, write it down right now.
Yeah, I lived in a house once where there was we were told old white lady. I come in and my buddy's living there, and there's like 4 roommates that live in the whole house, and one of my buddies owned the house. Is like, yeah, so like who owned the house? Like everything in this house looks very like old. He's like, yeah, we bought the house from this old lady. I'm like, okay, like why didn't you throw out the furniture? I was like, well, you know, these are nice furniture. I'm like, these are like from the 1940s, man. Let's get new furniture. He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure she died on that couch. I'm like, what? No, dude, we've been like hanging on this couch for like months. No, we're not keeping this couch. Since he has said that, I swear to you, we've heard weird footsteps. Like we're all downstairs playing video games and we hear footsteps. I'm like, who's upstairs? None. We're all down here. So definitely heard footsteps. We all started seeing just a glimpse of, just like nothing's creepy, whatever, glimpse of a lady in just a white dress. Maybe we're in the kitchen and we look in the living room, just a glimpse right there and then gone. And we go in, it's gone. And we're like, dude, we need to throw all the furniture out. Like we just need to throw everything out. And we did. It took us, like that guy would not throw anything out. I'm like, we're not keeping like a couch where a lady has died. And then you bought our house. So it took us months to convince him. We threw everything out, bought new furniture, and then we stopped seeing her. And maybe it was all psychological, but I'm telling you, we heard footsteps.
One too many bears, you are cut off.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you and your friend just had a good night with each other. And from the scratches.
No, that's not necessary. It was
scratching each other.
It's additional 2 weeks of having that painful feeling of like just taking a hot normal shower.
All right. Well, we going up on a tangent, but so going back to your paranormal stuff, you mentioned that you've also done some documentaries, and I believe that Dave Franks mentioned that there was one about a school with children. About could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we've done a couple of those about some Native American, some boarding schools. Um, so the very first one we did was about a boarding school in Concho, Oklahoma, and so kind of a quick history with about the Native people
Mhm.
was our um, ancestors back then when they came to Indian Territory, and not just here in Oklahoma, but all over the country in Canada. Um, they were forced to go to these boarding schools, literally forced. And here in Oklahoma, I believe, oh man, there was 40, 50 boarding schools here.
Oh.
And a lot of bad things happened there. A lot of kids died there through diseases. Some were murdered, raped, um, just a lot of bad history. And so with all this tragic, all this energy, there's lingering. There's something lingering there. And so with these documentaries that I'm doing, the paranormal documentaries that I'm doing, we don't go straight into any kind of investigation or try and ask questions or anything like that. Part of my storytelling process is telling the history of whatever location we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was important for me to do the research and find out what happened in these boarding schools and talk about it. Talk about the bad things that happened. I know some people may not want to hear it, but some of the tribes funded some of these boarding schools. And so we discussed that in the film, and then eventually we start telling the stories about the people that may work there currently, and then the last half of the film is us going there and doing our investigations, if you want to call it that, and then we present our findings through this documentary. So we've done boarding schools, we've done churches, we've done some homes. But at the same time, all of them too is telling the history of of each location as well. And every one of them too has it's called a Native American Paranormal Project. So every site has to have some kind of link to Native history. And so yeah, a lot of schools here in Oklahoma that we visited and was able to talk about it and found a lot of unexplained footage with our stuff too.
And you definitely gotta send me a link so we can share this with our audience because that sounds cool. Is this an ongoing project that you're doing, or is this kind of because you mentioned there's a lot of schools? I'm sure you haven't visited all of them.
Well, yeah. So it's not just the schools that we visited. It is an ongoing project. In fact, that I want to do another one pretty soon. We've done 6 feature films as far as documentaries, 6 feature documentaries over the years, and about maybe 8 or 9 short ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ongoing in the sense that we're going to do one sometime soon. We just don't have a location picked out yet, and I guess we're still trying to get the funds get together because I'm the one that funds all this stuff too. So all this comes out of my own pocket. So just trying to find a location, secure it, and secure the funds as well. So the last one we did was in 2019 at a school in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. It was a Cherokee orphanage at one point. Later became a university, and so that was the last one we did. Pretty exciting one too because we went Facebook Live with it. By that time, technology kind of caught up, and so we were able to do live investigation, and it was 2:00 in the morning. There's 10,000 people watching the videos with us.
Really, 10,000?
Yeah.
That
and
is
so
awesome.
we put it out there. We had a Facebook page. We still have it up. Have over 100,000 followers on it.
What?
And so we promote. We say we're going to go out on this night. We're going to go live. Tune in. And so we're there, and there's 10,000 people viewing it at 2:00 in the morning, and they're commenting things saying, "I saw this, I heard that," things that we didn't hear with our own ears.
Wow.
But the place actually where we was at was used by the school, so it had Wi-Fi, and so we was able to, between breaks, go back and watch the video of what we just shot. and we're seeing the comments. Someone says, I heard this, I heard that. And then sure enough, we could hear it on playback. During the live filming of it, we didn't hear anything.
Wow.
And so it was really cool just to get that interaction with, with our audience and with our people that are fans, I guess. And that's something we want to incorporate into our next one, is go Facebook Live with it again.
Nice.
Yeah, let us know. We'll join in. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely sounds like a realtor's nightmare.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Try explaining this.
It totally worked out because, whenever we do these shoots, we're there, 6, 7, 8 hours doing these investigations, asking questions, and the majority of the time nothing happens. But we're in a room asking questions, is anybody here? What's your name? And there's no response. And so, but what you see in the final product, and like when you see almost, TV shows like Ghost Hunters and all that, you're seeing kind of the highlight reel. You're not seeing the hours that went by where nothing happened. And so that was kind of one of the reasons I want to go Facebook Live, to kind of show our audience that this isn't just you go out there, we find something, or something happens right away.
Right.
It's a tedious process, and I wanted to kind of show what it took to make these documentaries. We got kind of lucky because right when we started filming, things started happening, and so which was great. But that was the reason I kind of wanted to go Facebook Live with it. Was one, for transparency reasons, but also just to show how tedious it can be to make these documentaries.
Now, when you said things started happening, what kind of things started happening?
Mostly responses to questions that we asked. We were getting, you asked the name, how old are you? Or sometimes if we're in a location and someone can speak that language, we'll speak the language if possible. And so we were getting some things, responses back to us that they saw on the live feed that we weren't hearing. So mostly at that school, it was answers to our questions. I got something pulled my arm during filming, and I remember saying, when we were in the basement in that place, something pulled my arm, and I said that to the guy I was with. I said, "Hey, something pulled my arm. I think it was behind me." And on the playback, you can hear something says, it says like yes, or it was agreeing with me, like saying, yeah, like I pulled your arm. But I didn't hear that with my own ears, but the audience on the live feed heard something say, they pulled arm. So it was kind of happened throughout the whole night that they were hearing things that we couldn't hear. And that happens anyway whenever we're shooting this footage. After we shoot it, I go back home and I watch all the footage. We have 3 or 4, every team has their own camera. I have the main camera. So I'm watching everybody's footage, listening for responses to our questions, things that we don't hear, with our own ear during the filming part of it.
Okay. First of all,
Yeah.
what that's insane. 1, 2, why is that? Why do you think that is? Why aren't you hearing it when you're there, but you hear it recorded afterwards?
That is something I've tried to do some research on that, and I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, there's times where we're in the same room, and I may have my main camera going. One of the teammates has one, another one has another, and we're all filming the same footage, going the same direction, but it may be someone else's camera that gets this voice. Sometimes
It could also
our
be
phones, sometimes they'll just grab the phone, start recording video on their camera phones, and those pick up really good stuff. So that's something I really can't explain why, how come that is. The only thing I can think of is when they're trying to manifest, when they're trying to let you know that they're there, some energy, when they're stronger, you can actually hear them. If they're faint, if that energy, if they're still trying to manifest and form, then maybe that's when the technology picks it up and our ears don't. One of the most creepy ones in that particular episode was there was always stories about they would hear a baby cry on the 2nd floor. Like I said, it was an orphanage, it was a Cherokee orphanage that was built right after the Civil War. And so there was the teacher, the people that worked there said they would hear a baby cry on the second floor. One of our team members, Brian Frijo, is live talking to the audience, and he's saying, you know, I'm here on the second floor. We're about to do this investigation. As he's talking, he heard it because it was so loud. Audience heard it. This loud kid starts screaming down the hallway.
Nope.
He turns around, and maybe he just didn't want to scare himself. He was like, I think that's a cat. But it wasn't. You could tell it was not a cat, but it was a kid screaming on the second floor. Everybody on the Facebook Live video heard it, commenting on it. Brian heard it with his own ears. And so something like that, I think it was that strong, you know, like I said, it's trying to manifest, and so it's there. And so he was able to hear it himself too.
So did you guys go up to look for this kid or see where the scream was coming from?
When he did that one, he kept talking. I think he heard it again. And so by that time I was in the cellar. And that's when that thing grabbed my arm too. And so
By yourself? You're in the cellar by yourself?
No. So what I do is, so before I even go shoot any kind of footage, I'll go and I'll interview all the people who may have stories. I'll do research on the location. I don't really tell the team members too much. I just kind of tell them, hey, we're going to Tahlequah, going to this town. Because I want them to experience everything first, you know, like raw. I want their raw reactions. So I'll do all the research and everything, so I kind of know what rooms has the most activity, or you know, that kind of stuff, the background. And so by the time they get there, I'll prep them in a sense that I'll put them in teams of 2s or 3s, and each one has their own camera. Mm-hmm. So we'll say for the first session, you guys go to the second floor, this team goes to the cellar, this one goes here. They're filming their sessions. I have the main camera, and I'll catch up to each team member doing their thing. And so when I was in the cellar, I was with one of the team groups.
Okay.
And then Brian was on the second floor when he heard the kids.
Question: between when you catch up from team to team, are you traveling by yourself from one team to another team?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Yeah. So
Mike, what?
People ask me a lot that do you get scared when you're doing these, and I mean, and not to like try to sound tough or anything, but to be honest, I don't. Only because my mind is in production mode. I'm thinking, are we getting the shots? How much time we get? Are they getting good sound? Are they getting good lighting? How's it going to look? And so I'm kind of editing in my head as well. And plus, I've been to that location probably a few times.
By yourself again?
Not during at night, not at night. And so the times that I kind of maybe get scared, I guess, is when I'm, like you said, going from team to team, trying to find them. So you are in the dark. Then I start thinking, wait a minute, I'm by myself here. Something happens, I'm by myself. At one of the schools that we was at, this school called Wheelock Academy, which was a Choctaw boarding school, something did grab me. I was leaving the classroom, walking down the hallway, trying to find the next 10. So I'm leaving the classroom. Something grabbed my shoulder and pushed me out the door. And it obviously didn't want me there. And it wasn't a kid. It was like a teacher. It was an adult hand just grabbed me and pushed me out the door.
And so, what did you do after that?
Dude, I ran. I ran.
Cool.
So on the footage on the camera, you'll see me walking. I'm just walking at a regular pace, but you can see the moment when it grabbed me. The camera starts shaking because I take off running. I didn't look behind me. And so, yeah, going from team to team, there is those moments when I'm by myself, and you kind of think about, this may not be the best idea.
See, I tell this to Mikey all the time that I just don't fuck with ghosts. Monsters, you bring Godzilla, I can punch, kill, do things to it, sure. If I can't do anything to you, or an entity that I can't do anything to, nope.
Yeah.
The fact that you decided to make this a career of yours is pretty amazing. And I'm just gonna wrap my head around it. So you record these things, and of course, so outside of that getting pushed, has anything really bad happened to you?
To me?
Or to anyone in your team?
No, not really. I mean, there's certain things that that natives can do. We try to. There's certain things that we do to protect ourselves. Some things we share on camera, some things we don't. So, but we think we to protect ourselves, to keep it from following us home. Nothing really has followed us home. We've gotten some people who's gotten pushed. Someone got affected to the point where they got really, really sick. Something just overcame them. I remember where I was looking at her. I could see in her eyes it wasn't her. She was just not herself. Not like possessed or anything, but it was really, really affecting her. So she couldn't finish that particular investigation. She got really sick. But one of the things that stays consistent with all of our these projects is if there's any kind of sense that something is demonic or something that those are things that we won't mess with. It could come down to safety or so if there's any kind of feeling or thought of that, then we won't pursue it.
So I'm not sure, like the fact that you do your own research and then don't tell them anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from a production, I mean, like when you're checking, like, oh, I'm just in production mode. I mean, like, well, there's a filmmaker, if there's one that's only thinking about, the production. But yeah, I mean, you not telling them anything about the background is kind of genius, but you not telling them anything about the background is kind of evil. And perhaps that makes you an evil genius, but I don't know, man. If I was on your team, I'd be pretty upset, like
yeah.
not being told what's going on here. Now, so do you get the sense that the entities, the beings there, want you there, want their story to be told, or do you think that they want to be left in peace? What has your investigation thus far shown or tells you?
I think with some of the responses that we've gotten, I think they do. Like I said, with if there's a particular location we can speak in the native tongue, then we'll do it. And we've gotten a lot of responses from it. Mm-hmm. A good example is this one I was talking about just a while ago, Wheelock Academy. It's a Choctaw boarding school. A few of our team members are Choctaw. Some of my family went to this academy. And so when we're speaking in Choctaw, the responses that we're getting, they're telling us things, warning us things, telling us to be quiet because someone's coming. They're protecting us as well. We literally got these voices saying, what is it saying? Be quiet, he's coming, something like that.
But who's he? Who's you're coming?
We don't know. We
Get
don't
the hell
know.
out of here.
What?
So you're saying someone's telling you he's coming and you don't know who?
Yeah.
No.
What was really intriguing about Wheelock is it's an all-girls boarding school. And it was an all-girls. It's closed now, closed in 1955, but it was an all-girls Choctaw boarding school. Some other tribes kind of went there as well, but for the most part, Choctaw. We noticed that we were getting a lot of responses when our female team members were asking questions.
Huh.
Like they were comfortable with the females, which I kind of get.
Right.
And so toward the end of the evening, I had all the guys not leave, but basically get out of the building. I had the females finish the investigation.
Okay.
And we started getting, and then it really, really picked up then. And so I think we get really good responses from whatever is there, because like I said, we're speaking something that it's their language, mm-hmm. Something they're familiar with, something that they wasn't allowed to do while they were still alive there. Natives they were punished for speaking the language.
Right.
So now we're coming in and saying it's okay. It's okay to say it. It's okay to greet us in Choctaw. And so I think they open up, and we're basically telling their story. We're giving them a voice to kind of tell us what happened. And so we don't go in there just hollering. We do what I think is very respectful. We have a sincerity about the way we ask questions.
Okay.
Because when we go to this location, there's our people went to this place. We're not doing it for ratings. We're not doing it for shock value. Mm-hmm. We are sincerely saddened and hurt because our family went through this stuff. And
Right.
so there's probably, I'm sure that's something that they can sense, that we're doing this, you know, in a probably more respectful and proper way. You know, we're not trying to just capture something and prove to people that Wheelock is haunted. We want to tell their story, and I think they get that.
Wow. Okay. Do you ID sent us a lot of stuff that I want to look at, but I mean, do you have any links? Where can people see this stuff?
So most of it would be we have a lot of stuff on YouTube right now.
Okay.
I have a YouTube channel, Native Boy Productions.
Yep.
They can go on there. There should be a playlist on there, but yeah, they can just scroll down there. You'll see some other films as well.
Wait, can we pull one of these
The
stuff up
paranormal
right
stuff.
now? Is that cool?
Sorry.
Can you pull one of these stuff up right now?
Yeah, I think I may have sent. I sent you the link or.
No. Go to the links that he sent us. Which one is it? Our church.
Our church. That's the feature. I think I sent you the film, not the trailer.
Oh, do you have a trailer?
Let me see.
If you YouTube it, can you find it?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, let's just YouTube. Open up a new YouTube page and just do Our Church trailer. Native Boy Productions, right?
Is there a trailer on there already?
I'm looking for it.
Yeah, Our Church, the official trailer. I got one I can send to you right now.
2018, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There's one that says official trailer.
Yeah, just search that.
I'll text you one.
Is it the one with that has like a red? That's the BD horror trailers.
See the author.
Okay, the trailer.
Yeah.
All right, let's put this thing up right now.
Copy and send you the.
Yep.
This is actually my favorite one too.
Yeah, because dude, this seems insane that you're doing this. The fact that you're going out there and first of all, very honorable. Because like you've said that you're coming from a kind of an intimate place of telling your history and telling about you're telling their story of the atrocities that were done there, right?
Mhm.
You're coming from a good place, but I'm not sure if I heard a voice say he's coming and I'm not aware of what that he is.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
You know,
The one thing with that separates our church from the other ones is this is one of the ones where bad things didn't happen.
bad things didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Did happen.
Didn't
Okay.
happen. Did not happen. This church is still in operation, but it's an old Seminole church.
Okay.
Very traditional church. Traditional Seminole and Creek churches are different from churches that people are familiar with.
Right.
And so we talk about the history of these old Indian churches.
Mhm.
And with that, there's a lot of unexplained things that are going on, especially at this church. And so they were open about it. And so one of the things that this is my favorite is because, hauntings or whatever you want to call it doesn't just happen at bad places.
Right.
Bad things happen. It could be something where people just want to still be around you. Just like with this church, they know who it is. It's a grandma, it's a grandpa, someone that's passed on. This church meant a lot to them, and so when they're singing these Seminole hymns, they hear them singing with them, and so it's more of a sense of comfort for them when they see things and they hear things because it's a family member,
Mm-hmm.
and so the story is pretty it's pretty special, I think, and then the thing. When the things we captured, it's creepy because there's voices that you don't see who's talking to you, but the church congregation will tell you that they're comforted by it because, like I said, they know who it is.
All right. So we're about to see a trailer of Our Church where basically, go ahead, Mikey. This is a good place. That's a place that's still functional. People are going there. And the idea behind it is that this is not only these spirits are not only in places that are abandoned and where bad things have happened. Sometimes things, entities want to stick around.
They want to stick around.
And it's still freaking creepy.
It can be, yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at it. Go ahead.
Indian churches have a different feel, I would say, than your average white church.
I like the logo.
Keeping that old spirit alive with as part of the churches and the culture.
The family was just like at home, and my cousin's husband built the camp house for us, so that's how we started camping out here.
She said people would almost come and just stay like the entire summer there with their children.
Every night, well, I mean, the singing, you know, he used to just go.
One day, all this is gonna be gone. All the singing and everything's gonna be gone, and nobody's gonna be there to pick it up.
And that's the way it used to be, all churches around here.
As church members passed on, they were laid to rest here on the church grounds near the buildings that meant so much to them. As the years passed, some say the spirits of former members still drop by from time to time. We sit down with current members who share some of their stories of paranormal activity that has occurred here at Rock Springs. This is their footage.
It's not, you know, really a bad spirit, you know, these are the good spirits. Because, you know, they want to be with us. You know, they want the singing part, you know, they want to be with us and help us sing. But if they want you to hear them, then you'll hear them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way that, you know, that's the way that works.
So we didn't really see any paranormal activity on the trailer, but those are the footage of when you guys are going out there and doing, you know, searching for this. Were you able to record anything?
Oh yeah, that was probably one of our more active places.
Wow.
Well, it was more what they say intelligent, because it was telling us what was happening during that time. We got some speaking in Seminole.
Do you have footage of that?
I might.
Like that's
one of the ones that that I think really hit home as far as what I'm talking about when they are comforted by it is whenever this Rock Spring Church let us come film there, one of the agreements was they want to see the documentary first before I released it.
Of course.
You know, again, to make sure it's not just
respectful,
kind of exploit them or
right,
make them look bad or anything like that. And so when we're shooting there that night, there's camp houses, and they mentioned it in the film. Two of our team members were setting up camera. They weren't even asking questions yet. They just had a camera rolling, and it was filming, it was recording. And when I reviewed it, I noticed as he was setting up the camera, this shadow appears on the bottom right of the screen. This person just pops up in the middle of the screen for 9 seconds, and then you hear makes like a sigh. It goes kind of like that,
nope.
And it just goes away out of the screen. And I told his name was Steve, the guy who's running the camera. I said, "Did you see this?" So I sent it to him, and he looked at it. And I was like, "What was that?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "I just hit record, and nothing. I don't remember hearing that." And so we put that in the film. And during the first screening, we showed it to the church, the private screening for them. One of the aunts, one of the elders, she started crying. And she told us later, she said, "I know who that is." She said, "That's my niece. She passed away about maybe 4 or 5 years before that." And she used to always play in front of that camp house. That was her favorite spot to play. And whenever people would take family pictures and they would hold their cameras up to take pictures, she would always do that. She would get in front of the camera. That just kind of, trying to be, being silly.
Mhm.
And they would tell her, get out of the way. And she would make that same noise, that sound, and she would
And
same movement, same sound.
and you
And she
have
said that's
this.
her
You have this in the film,
in the documentary. Yeah.
in the documentary. Do you know where it is? Because I want to see it. Do you know what? Can we scan to the? Because the documentary is up there on YouTube, right? Do you know around what part of that is?
Probably. Let me. I might just scroll through here too. Look around 41 minutes in. I think that might be it.
41. So is it the
41?
Paranormal? Yep, that one. It's an hour and 9 minutes, right? The documentary.
Yeah.
Okay, that one. And I'll go to 41 minutes. Yep.
Go about 41 minutes in.
Yeah. So
the footage is kind of grainy because, like I said, he was still setting up.
yeah, all good.
No, but you can
start
see
from like a few seconds earlier. Yeah. All right. Let me know when it's ready to put up. Dude, rewind a little bit more because I think that's the footage. Right here.
They're talking about it. I think they're talking about what's about to happen. So you might go back.
Go back a little bit. Pause it.
Maybe a little bit. Right there's good.
Okay, good.
So not too much has happened here, I don't think. But the pastor stayed with us, and so he's singing some little hymns for us.
We went back to our rendezvous point, and I started looking at my pictures of what, if anything I captured, if I, seen any orbs around Steve or anything. And then at the front of that camp house is, this image I believe to be an image, and that looks a whole lot like, a little kid. You could see the top of the head.
There was something that we captured on the video. Can you talk a little bit about that, Steve?
So I just turned my camera around and, I started doing just a little show of I was off a ways. I was just getting a shot, a stock shot that had the church and good view. And as we stood there, we just sat there and asked a few questions because we had some things running, and that's what we captured. No.
What?
No.
Nope. Nope.
Even living kids, they'll get in your way when you've got a camera. So that's probably what it was. But it didn't bother me a bit in the world. Like I said, that I just pretty much feel comfortable about it.
So we just came out of.
So that was kind of one of the ones I kind of wanted to show, because that kind of talks about what, even though it's creepy and it creeped us out when we saw it, it touched them. It made them feel warm that's my niece. She's still here. She's still playing. She's still being silly, and she was crying. She was like kind of glad that she's, there, just being herself, being silly. And so that's why I think this particular film kind of separates itself from the others, because it's different than the other ones.
That's really cool, and that's really cool that there's a human connection to it. But when you repeatedly hear me say nope, it's because if that had happened to me in front of me, Usain Bolt would have nothing on me and how fast I would run the hell out of there. Dude, that's awesome.
There
Yeah,
was one of the good examples when I said it's intelligent is, and it took a while. We didn't piece it together. Is we had a team member with the pastor's how the church as he's singing the song, a Seminole hymn, and Steve and Dee Dee, the one that you saw the interview, they're at the camp house, and so we got a response from after he sang that hymn. Response is something like, "They're coming back. There's two of them." We didn't know what it meant. Like, what does that even mean? Did something happen? But when we started doing the timestamp and piecing everything together, that was the time when Steve and Didi was walking back toward them, and it was saying that they're coming back. There's two of them. He was talking about our two team members, and so it wasn't until like after the fact that we said, "Oh, that's what it's talking about."
gotcha.
And so it was very whatever it was an intelligent spirit that was there that was able to kind of talk to us and just kind of communicate with us.
Wow. Wow. And like you can 100% see there's a shadow there. You hear the noise very clearly. And by the way, man, kudos on the editing. Like both the Our Church trailer soundtrack editing was on point, brother. And then also for the way that you pace the documentary, give audience a second for everything to settle in. Everything like it's really well done, and I am 100% going to watch the whole documentary now because and the fact that it's creepy. Like I think again, like I said, there's like a really human element to it because it's creepy, sure, but also what it meant for that woman for I imagine was incredible. It touched her somewhere that if it wasn't for your work, she wouldn't have experienced. So
and she was grateful for it, and it's something that, like I said, back to the thing about being humbled. That they enjoy it. They said thank you for making this, and they they see and hear these things all the time, so they were kind of glad that they weren't the only ones, that they weren't going crazy. That I've actually proved that what they heard and seen is been real. But yeah, they were just so open about it. Just whenever they hear other people sing with them or talking to them in Seminole, they don't really get scared. It's like, oh, that's grandpa, that's grandma, that's uncle. He's just hanging out with us. He wants to fellowship with us. And so, yeah, it's a different kind of. I don't even want to call it haunting. I mean, it's a different kind of a visitation, I guess.
Spiritual.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of being humble, we've went way beyond the time that we're supposed to, and that's what usually happens with these. Like, I mean, our first podcast, it went 6 hours, and it was supposed to be 2 hours, just because we just had a good time talking, a good conversation, and this has been great. But I know that we've went over our time a bit, but do you have a little bit more? Because I do want to talk about your other cultural stuff before we finish quickly, and just show some of your work before we finish up here. How are you doing? I know we've passed your time, but do you have a little bit more time to just talk about those things?
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I know that, so yes, we're definitely going to talk more about your paranormal stuff more because I'm going to watch these documentaries and I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to have so many questions, but you've transitioned, like as this is a part of one of your projects, you've also, the way we met, you were working on more cultural elements for the Native American community in Oklahoma. Could you tell me a little bit about the work that you do now or that you're more involved with now?
So a lot of stuff that I do right now is through my freelance. I have two production companies. Native Way Productions is the stuff that I go out and I produce myself. I fund myself. I try to find these stories. Digital Feather Media is my freelance work where people bring me on and they hire me, and that's where a lot of it is coming from recently. is these tribes are one of these short videos, profile videos, documentaries done. And we started one back in 2018, or released one in 2018 about Choctaw stickball. And that's kind of what something I was really proud of, but that's what kind of put me on the map as far as like doing cultural films, and other people wanting to, or the tribes wanted me to tell their stories or talk about their history. And to even go back even further, you mentioned David Frank. I was doing some stuff with him about language, Seminole and Creek language. It was kind of just like a whole grassroots project. We didn't have the money to do things, but we did it anyway. Because David, as you met, he's very passionate about Seminole history and culture, and so he brought me on to help tell those stories, and this kind of been doing it ever since, through documentaries. And I've never done documentary before, but started doing it around that time, and just started really digging it, really liking it, and just grateful for it to keep telling it and learning about it myself.
That's really great. Now, yeah, I've been. Dave actually invited me for a couple of Zoom calls where they're talking about the language and the history of it.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. But yeah, so you mentioned that stickball is something that I really wanted to see when I was down in Oklahoma, but I didn't get a chance to do so because they ended up canceling that event. But yeah, so you have you said that this was one of the films that put you on the map. You have a trailer for it, and this is something that's available now for people to see, correct?
Yes, this one is.
So tell me a little bit about this.
So the game of stickball is something.
Yeah, what is stickball?
It really is. It's the oldest sport in America.
Okay.
It was playing before written history. It was a game that we played to settle disputes.
Okay.
Before, instead of going to war and losing families, losing warriors, they created this game. So to settle dispute, they would play a game, and some people still. It was a rough game, so some probably still died, but it was a way for them to settle disputes. And then it kind of became a sport, and then just stayed with our people to where they're still playing to this day.
Now, when you say people die, people still do die, but the point is that
not now.
As people die, not now, but at that time when it's initially played, from what I remember from my conversation with Jake and Rodney, is that people died. It was a very brutal game, but the idea was that a lot less people would die in a game than in an all-out war, and this is a better way to war. Right. Exactly, it's a better way to settle disputes. Right. So this movie is called what?
Teshka, which means Warrior's Journey in Choctaw.
Gotcha, Warrior's Journey. Okay, so let's take a look at this trailer. Now, this is you shot this. Is this a narrative or a documentary?
This is also a documentary.
Gotcha. Okay, and the documentary is about
the Choctaw Nation team, Tuskahoma. There's a World Series of stickball that takes place in Mississippi every year.
Okay.
One whole year, I follow this team as they prepared, practice to get ready for the World Series.
Wow. Okay, cool. Let's take a look.
It's so much rooted in our past. It's like a tree. It's got its roots in the past. But that tree grows. And, one branch is there in Mississippi, one branch is here in Oklahoma, but we're all from that same tree, and from that tree, we make those sticks. This is Choctaw stickball.
Someone will ask, how do you describe stickball? And I'm like, well, it's rugby, it's football, it's basketball, it's soccer, it's lacrosse, it's all these things in one. Stickball itself is pure.
Those who kept our language, who kept our stories, who kept our sticks, they carried that forward for us.
And that's a way that I can still honor my ancestors.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to build these youth up so that they in the future will become a part of Team Tuskahoma.
We a community, we a family. Pretty much all of us, we are family. time we get a team practice going on, let's make an effort to get out there and get better. But we got 4 months.
The World Series of Stickball, it's the main event when it comes to stickball.
To play in Mississippi, you know, it's an honor. We like it. I love it. You know, it's always a good day to play Choctaw stickball.
What does stickball mean to me? It means everything. It's part of my identity as a Choctaw person.
Dude, this is all shot by you, right? And edited
sir.
by you?
Yeah.
And may I ask how old are you now?
44.
44. In 14 years, you have mastered a craft, brother. Like that is, I've seen plenty of documentaries, young filmmakers who have done this for decades. Just the editing and the shots that you've captured. I mean, well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And and Mikey knows I am the harshest of films, and like there's movies I will watch. I'm just like, nope, this like that was all wrong. That just wasn't done correctly. Forget it. Like when I'm watching this, but those were really well done, man. Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm going to watch these, and plus we'll definitely put them up on our site. Now, so what are you doing next? I from what I remember that you mentioned that you kind of there's something big happening. You're getting a distribution from we're not gonna name it, but you're getting distribution from you're in the final talks with a pretty big one of the big streaming services. Is that correct?
Yeah. So hopefully I'll hear some good news here in the next few weeks. I do have a couple of films on Amazon Prime right now.
Okay.
Shiloh is one. It's about a Native American female boxer.
Okay.
I think I may send you that trailer too.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of sports documentaries, but so I have one that hopefully will get some good news, and it'll be on a streaming site soon.
Great.
Then I'm in post-production on another stickball film called Journey of Tiakakia Ahoyo.
Okay.
I went back to the World Series of Stickball this past year
Mhm.
and followed one of the women's teams. And I'm excited about that one because that's actually from my reservation where my family's from. So we're telling their story and got their journey to the World Series. So I think I sent you the trailer for that one too.
Yeah.
So that one I'm in post-production on.
Yeah. That's coming up, right?
Yes, that'll be the next one that should get released.
Gotcha. Now, explain this to me. You mentioned that this is Choctaw stickball, correct? How is that? From my understanding, as you explained, there are different tribes that play each other. In here, are only the Choctaw tribe playing each other?
For this particular tournament, yeah. Well, as of recently, the Chickasaw tribe sent a team, or they have a couple years ago. They sent a team for the first time. There's here in Oklahoma, they kind of refer to it, I guess, as Choctaw style of stickball. The Cherokees of northeast here in Oklahoma, they play their own style of stickball, but to compete or play in tournaments, they'll play what they call Choctaw style. And so, so you have the Choctaws and Chickasaws, Cherokees kind of playing each other. And sometimes, depending on the tournament, they may come up with a certain different rule here or there, just to make things maybe safer or just to kind of accommodate that particular tournament. So some things can be changed, they'll tweaked here and there. But for the most part, what happens in the World Series, that's kind of the standard down there as far as rules and that kind of stuff. But even then, every year, they kind of get together and see what they can kind of do to improve or make things a little bit safer because, and it has gotten a little bit safer than what it used to be 15, 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they're always adapting, kind of making changes here and there. Again, you mentioned tribes played differently, Seminoles and Creeks, and David may have mentioned this to you. They play a different style of stickball. Theirs is more ceremonial. They play after a stomp dance. It's something that's really not meant to be seen in public. There's no tournaments. They don't play tournament style. Choctaws play tournament style. It's on YouTube. There's a YouTube live streaming of games. A documentary that you just seen. You won't see that about Seminoles and Creeks. Their game is a lot more, I would probably say, sacred, and they kind of keep it close to them. And so yeah, there's different styles and different approaches to it.
So it's when that person on the narration in the trailer describes it as this is like football, rugby. Like, dude, I saw some of those tackles.
A lot of it was.
That's no joke.
When so you think about basketball, you know, there's a jump ball in basketball, start of the game. That's stickball. You got the 100-yard field on football. The tackling, the passings. There, a lot of the things that we see in today's sports kind of derived from stickball.
Wow. Well, on that note, I mean, I'll definitely play that trailer of the new upcoming one, that was the third one that you sent us.
This might be Journey of Tiakakia Ahoyo.
Yeah.
So this one's more of a teaser trailer, so it's not very long, but
sure. Well, listen, man. You know, I know you gave us way more time than we had initially planned for, but that's how these conversations usually go. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. You know,
definitely, I did.
We'll definitely would love to have you back to talk more about your paranormal stuff. And the next time you're doing one of those Facebook Live stuff, let me know. I want to get in there with a blanket and some popcorn and and yeah, well, blanket because I'll be scared shitless. But can I just see my mark again, please? And also, what I would, you know, I'm just very appreciative of the work that you're doing. It's important work. You know, I know that Dave. I respect Dave Franks greatly. I know how highly he thinks of you. So that means a lot to me. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us and for sharing your story. And we'd love to put this stuff up. And once this goes up, we'll send it over to you. One thing that you did mention is that, you know, you fund a lot of this stuff yourself. Do you have a day job or do you just fully do this?
So I do. I actually work with David.
Okay.
Yeah, I do the media stuff for Seminole Nation of Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
And then, but they've been really good. When they brought me on, I was already doing all these freelance jobs.
Gotcha.
And one of the things was they wanted the same style of documentary filmmaking that I was doing to bring it to the Seminole Nation.
Gotcha.
But they let me still do my other stuff, other projects, and so it's just kind of a good working environment right now. Get to tell the history and the culture of the Seminole people, David's people, and still get to work with these other tribes as well. So that's my daytime job. And then when these other tribes bring me onto their projects, that's kind of the side stuff.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned that about getting funds. If somebody wanted to check out your stuff and send you some funds, or if they're interested in producing your films, where could they find your things?
So the current latest work is always on my Facebook page under Digital Feather Media.
Okay, Digital Feather Media.
And then same email, digitalfeathermedia@gmail.com.
Gotcha. And for your Native Boy Productions, do you have a site for that?
There's also a Facebook page, Native Boy Productions, and then nativeboyproductions@gmail.com as well. Either one of those, I'll see.
Yeah, we'll put those things up, and you know, it's good work, man. And I'm sure, you know, the more we get it out there, you know, people would be interested, and you know, definitely, you know, putting some money behind this stuff. Especially great work. Very impressed, and hopefully we get to talk again soon. All right, we're gonna end this
Awesome.
with the final trailer of Journey of. Pronounce that for me properly, so I don't butcher it.
Tiakakia Ahoyo, which is Standing Pine Women.
One more time.
Tiakakia Ahoyo.
Journey of Tiakakia Ahoyo.
Ahoyo.
All right, hey man, take care. Thank you so much for being here. And here, let's watch the trailer. All right.
Thanks.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.